I'm looking at number 1 on section 7.3. 7.3 is about constructing confidence intervals for standard deviation or variance. This section is similar to 7.1 and 7.2, where we use the normal distribution or the student t-distribution. But for standard deviation or variance, you need to use the chi-squared distribution. Now, the difference for the chi-squared distribution is it's not perfectly symmetrical, it's skewed. So your critical values, our chi-squared to the left and our chi-squared to the right, aren't going to be opposites of each other, and one's not going to be, they're not going to be the same, but one negative and the other one. The chi-squared values can never be negative. They're 0 or above, so they're going to be two totally different values, so you've got to find them independently. So let's start with this problem. We're talking about nicotine in menthol cigarettes with a 90% confidence. Our n equals 21 and our sample standard deviation is 0.25 milligrams. Degrees of freedom, remember, is n minus 1, so in this case it's going to be 20. Now, to find our chi-squared to the left value, you can use the table or you can use StatCrunch. I'm going to use StatCrunch. And you just do stat calculators chi-squared. And our degrees of freedom is 20 here. And since we're using a 90-degree confidence interval, just like before, even though it's skewed, it's going to look more like this. You still split it up the same. You've got 0.90 in the center, and then the tails have what's left over. So your alpha would be 0.10, so alpha divided by 2 is going to be 0.05. So on StatCrunch makes it pretty easy. You can do 0.05, and it's going to give you your chi-squared to the left value. So here mine is 10.851. Now the chi-squared to the right, you can do this two ways. If you leave this less than or equal to, you need to do the area to the left of your critical value, which would be all the area this way would be 0.95. Or if you wanted to change it to greater than or equal to, you can just use the 0.05. They'll both give you the same calculation. So 31.410. Now, to construct the confidence interval, there's not a StatCrunch or a calculator. That there is a calculator, but it has to be downloaded. So I'm just going to use the formula. So remember, we've got degrees of freedom is 20. This is our chi-squared to the left, our chi-squared to the right, and then our sample standard deviation is 0.25. So we're going to use this formula because we're doing standard deviation. Both of these formulas are the same. It's just for variance you don't use the square root. But other than that, they're exactly the same calculations. One thing to notice though is the lower bound uses the chi-squared to the right, which is a little confusing, but remember the chi-squared to the right is a bigger number than your chi-squared to the left. So if you're dividing by a bigger number, you're going to get a smaller value. So that will give you the lower bound. So to find our lower bound, we're going to do the square root of n minus 1, which is 20, our degrees of freedom, times the standard deviation squared, divided by your chi-squared to the right. So that's going to be 31.410. And then the upper bound is going to be the exact same thing, except you're going to use your chi-squared to the left value. So here we'll use the 10.851. So after I plug these in the calculator, they want it rounded to 2 decimal places, so I get 0.1999, so that's going to be 0.20 will be my lower bound. And the upper bound, I got 0.339, so that'll be 0.34. So 0.20 and 0.34.